All right, this is the Flood and Erosion Control Board special meeting of July 26th. We have a quorum right now of Becky Bunnell, Chair.
Dick Mahusky, Secretary.
Prue O'Brien, Recording Secretary.
Paul Adino, Member.
And we will go ahead and start with the agenda. We believe there's one more member who will be calling in as well, but we're going to go ahead and start given the time.
And the time is 7:15.
14, but yes, we can, whatever Prue would like to put down.
I put down 7:13 because that's when I looked at it.
Okay, 7:13. So our first action is to consider and act upon the minutes of March 15th.
And this unfortunately is an error because
that seems
put that
a long
entry
time
there.
Ago.
I put that entry in there, and we actually did approve the March 15th minutes on April 19th meeting. So this should be to approve the April 19th minutes. But since this is a special meeting, we can't change the agenda. So I think we just need to pass on any approvals of any minutes.
Okay.
That takes care of item 2.
So let's move on to item 3, which is to review of our request to the Charter Revision Commission. And we had, as you may remember, sent a letter to the Charter Revision Commission asking for multiple edits to the charter, almost all in support of the changed state statutes that were approved in July of last year. One of which is a name change, one of which is adding 3 additional alternate members, and then just aligning our responsibilities and duties with the state statutes as per the state statutes.
So we sent that letter to them, and the content of the letter, the action items, were in fact in their record keeping way back in November when the letter was sent. So in the red line version of the revised charter that was existing on like May 31st, those changes did not really appear there. So at their June 2nd meeting where public comment was given, I spoke to the Charter Revision Committee and told them that, hey, you guys put it here, but it's not there. Why don't you get your act together? So subsequently they did. And in the current version that went to the Board of Selectmen and now has gone back to the Charter Revision Commission, all of our requests have been included in the current version of the revised charter. The other thing that we asked, in addition to our specific items, was that the Director of Public Works be made an ex officio member of our board, and that was done in the Public Works Director's area of the charter. It also appears in our area of the charter too, just for redundancy. So and the Board of Selectmen did not have any comments on that.
So unless there's pushback.
Unless there's a change by the Charter Revision Commission, all our stuff is in there, and it just needs to go and get voted
by the public.
Approved by the public in November.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that update. Any questions or comments before we move to the next agenda item? All right, the next agenda item is discussion of input into the Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD, and our Parks and Rec Master Plan. And I'd like to take them separately. Let's start with the POCD. A draft of the proposed resilience section of the POCD was sent around, and a discussion was held between attending members of the Flood and Erosion Control Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the consultants who are preparing the POCD. I have taken the comments were made during that meeting, but I have taken a stab at capturing a formal set of comments. It was sent out by email probably 10 minutes before I left for this meeting, so it should be in your email very recently.
So, Paul, you had a chance to read it.
So no one had a chance to read it. So why don't I walk through my comments? I think my goal of today's meeting is that I think the Flood and Erosion Control Board needs to write a formal response back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and consultants with our thoughts on their proposed framework. And just to give you a review, Paul, I don't know how much of a chance you had to read the framework, but that basically the thrust of their resilience part of the POCD, which was all they shared with us, was to say that they wanted resilience to be an active and positive statement that Fairfield will be a resilient community, which I think is great. I love the idea that they want this to be an active and positive statement. They then said that, the idea of a POCD is that it acts as a vehicle for which the town can, basically fund projects and apply for grants. So if it's not in the POCD, the town is very unlikely to fund it, and they are very unlikely to support any grant applications. And grant appliers or grant funders are unlikely to give the town money if it's not in the POCD, because that meant that it wasn't important to the town. So having items in the POCD is very important from a resilience standpoint in order to apply for grants, in my mind. I'm a little less.
Becky, I was on that call a little bit, and I also was very impressed with the sort of preoccupation that it was a working session and that it was positive in the nature of trying to adapt resiliency to existing neighborhoods and such. But and I think it's great that it's included. So my only question is specificity, and is there an open door for other suggestions to be considered or added?
Yes, and that's what my note was mine is a list of suggested edits, additions, and alterations to what they presented to us. So I'll just go through them quickly.
Sure.
The first thing they said was resilient hubs, and this they outlined as commercial hubs. They said there are 6 resilient hubs, and it was basically the 6 commercial areas of town, the 3 metro centers, the downtown, and Stratfield Village, and what was the other one? Greenfield Hills Village, I guess, and Southport Village. Oh, and Black Rock Turnpike. Those were the
slides.
Those were the 6 hubs, and I have no issue with protecting those 6 hubs. I support it completely. My issue is I would like to add another area of protection, which is what I would call the community assets that make Fairfield the town it is. So Fairfield as a town is known for its beaches, for his historical. I mean, we applaud the fact that we just had a big town birthday, several years ago now. But I mean, the history of Fairfield is really important to who we are as a town. The beaches are really important to who we are as a town. So it feels like those things should be equally as protected as our commercial assets, in my mind. And I'd like that called out overtly in the plan. So to me, it's beaches, historical area, the graveyard, the Burr Mansion, Sun Tavern, all the historical things around the museum and stuff. And then I would also probably call out the key town facilities of the town hall, police station and fire station, and schools. I mean, those should be protected too, in my mind. Then there's a question in my mind of whether we protect churches or not. But I mean, so I'd like them to expand their protect resilient hub areas to include the things that make Fairfield Fairfield. So thoughts on that? Does everyone agree with that? Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, I would certainly agree with that.
And we don't have to align on this 100% today, but I would like people to think about it, because what the next steps on this are I'll probably take the stab at writing a formal letter, and I'd like all of us to review the letter and comment on it and agree upon it before we send it.
Yeah, I would think that we'd want to do this sooner than later. So if Becky wants to take the first stab at that, then send it out to the board, and we will get back to you with our comments. But
these are the things I'm going to be putting in the letter.
Yes,
so
understand.
This is helpful for me to understand. Do you agree with one of the things I'm putting in, and or should there be other things? So the next area that they talked about, they had 6 areas, six slides they showed. The next area was what they called resilient corridors, which I also agree with. And these are protecting the key, mostly, key roadways that allow people to get to safety, basically, is what they were saying. And I think that is very aligned to the Flood and Erosion Control Board Master Plan, which is to prioritize projects that directly impact the safety of our residents. So in my mind, raising roads is a priority because it allows safe egress in flood situations and underpasses as well. So I would like to add in to the resilient corridor area raising flood-prone roads, such as Fairfield Beach Road, Turney Road, part of Riverside Drive. These are all things that we have looked at in our plan to help protect the safety of our residents. And I think they should be overtly called out in here in the blue box section. And I also like that Reef Road was included in the list, but Reef Road is technically not an evacuation road. So should Roland and Penfield also be included is my question. But I actually think Reef Road should be changed to be an evacuation route, personally, because I think everyone thinks of that as an evacuation route.
Those three main north-south roads.
Well, they have Beach Road in there and Reef Road. Beach Road is an evacuation, Penfield and Roland. Those are the only ones.
Penfield.
And Roland are the only ones that are. Reef Road is technically not one, but I think it should be changed to be one, because I think most people will.
Part of that is because of the parking. Isn't that
the only issue
distinguisher?
The only issue is that there is a very small commercial section at the lower end of Reef Road that they sued the town to allow parking to be on there, because an evacuation route can only have parking on one side or no sides. You cannot have both side parking on an evacuation route. And so they sued and won, I guess, to allow parking in the lower end,
on both sides,
right by their commercial section. So maybe that section is exempt, but the rest of Reef Road that's not in the commercial section should be an evacuation route.
Okay.
In my mind. But that's the only reason Reef Road wasn't originally. Then they had 3 neighborhood slides. Where they had 4 neighborhood slides. One neighborhood slide was called Maintain, and this was basically saying in the areas that don't flood a lot, we just do what we're doing. And I have no issue with that. I support it. The only thing is that possibly something like St. Mortar does flood, and that was called out as in the you don't need to worry about it, don't do anything. So we should go back and look at that list and just make sure that anything about around the Mill River or St. Mortar that does flood is taken off of that Maintain slide. Because I feel like they just sort of made a generality that doesn't, and someone in the meeting even mentioned that St. Mortar floods. So we need to be, I think, aware that perhaps they were a little too general with that. Then the last 3 sections they called Reduced Risks. And they had 3 neighborhoods called out. One was the Beach District. One was the kind of area of Rooster River. And then they had kind of the over near Commerce Drive. I think they had the Camden-Rutland area. And they did not treat all 3 of those the same. And I have a big issue with that. I agree completely with the concept of reducing risks. But I think they should all be grouped together as 3 geographic areas, the same way the hub area had 6 areas that were all treated the same way. The way they weren't treated the same is the beach area is not allowed to have any community or town funding to support projects in the beach area, whereas the other ones could have town funding and community support. And the rationale for that felt discriminatory to me, and I had a fairly violent reaction to it. And the rationale was, it's too expensive to buy out houses in the beach area, so we're just not allowing the beach area to have buyouts. And the projects are too expensive in the beach area, so we don't want to do them there. And my feeling is...
They're commensurate with the tax revenue that comes from that area.
But my feeling is, if they're too expensive, we all know that a grant will only be given if the... cost analysis makes sense. Yep. And if it doesn't make sense, we won't get it. So why not allow every district to apply for grants equally? If they can't get the benefit cost analysis to work, then they won't get the grant. I mean, if that's true, then allow the grant application person to say no, not the town saying no, you can't even apply. So my feeling is treat all three of them the same, and if the projects are too expensive in the beach area, then guess what? They just won't get the grants, and that's life. So I feel like the description, the reason for not having them treated equally felt discriminatory, and I think it would actually all be out in the wash anyway, because some of the expensive projects just won't get done because they won't get the grants. I do, however, very much support the idea of the low-income households per the state guidelines. I do think that that's important to recognize and that we somehow need to call that out in the POCD. However, I also believe that there are low-income households in all three of those neighborhoods that would apply. I mean, probably a few less in the beach area, but there are certainly, I guarantee you, I know that there are low-income houses in the beach area. I know there are. So again, I think the premise should be we would support a focus on low-income, housing and supporting low-income neighborhoods that can't raise their own homes per the state guidelines. But we wouldn't discriminate one district versus the others. It would just be wherever there were low income, we support it. So that's my feeling on how they should be treating those three areas. They should consolidate them into one area, the same way the economic hubs were, treat them all the same, and allow the grant applications to either be accepted or not. So thoughts on that? Does everyone agree with that premise, or do we feel like they should be treated separately?
No, that all sounds good. I would make the comment, though, that Dave Murphy said that those slides were prepared for discussion at that meeting. Those slides are not necessarily going to appear within the POCD as they were presented. That was just to spur discussion. But the topical areas on those slides will occur in some form in the POCD.
Okay.
Paul?
And I think, Becky, that was a great pickup, and I think it's important that you called that out, because I think to Dick's very point, if we don't say anything about it, it very easily could be adopted as three distinct areas. And I think, I just don't want to waste any time. I thought your thoughts were excellent and right on target.
All right, so I would make a motion that the Flood and Erosion Control Board write a formal commentary to Planning and Zoning on the POCD process and topics to be included.
I would second that.
And I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a quorum. I will take the stab at writing it. I will send it out within the next week to everyone to review offline with comments back to the group of reply all comments. The only other quick things I said here are, because Dick had mentioned this in the meeting, we wanted to make sure that the Mill River area got called out because it is a flood-prone area. We also wanted a resilience call-out of the concept of expanding and connecting greenways to mitigate damages from flooding. And the two things that I forgot to put on this slide, but I wrote myself here, are that the Resilience Fund and stormwater management should be at least considered and put in the POCD.
We mentioned both of those topics during the conversation.
Yeah. So, all right, so that's the POCD. Any other comments on the POCD before we go on to Parks and Rec Master Plan?
No, I think that's
all right.
That's good.
Parks and Rec Master Plan. Dick, do you want to take this one? Because you took the lead on.
Yeah, I sent around the email that I sent to them. Basically, Ash Creek. I just wanted to put in there the fact that we've got the new SRT, the replacement SRT going in on the town property there. And that will influence the marsh health where they have these boardwalks figured in. And I also talked about Jennings Beach, the pavilion area, that their diagrammatic plan seems to chop right through the dike such as it is. And I think we need to just improve that. And what I did was I referred them to the study that Malone and McBroom did, which has specific conversations on all of those things. The other thing I commented on was in the Old Dam Road or South Pine Creek Recreation Area, they don't really show the driveway entrance from the parking lot, which would go to the tide gate installation. And I just pointed out that needs to have access to the tide gates for maintenance. The other thing is that, and we'll get to that in the bulleted list, but when we replace those tide gates with the new ones and move the existing bridge to a different location for show, that driveway will be right where the bridge's new location will be. So that needs to be incorporated. The other thing I mentioned was that we have on the drawing board the plans for the big pump station at Jennings Beach, and that's part and parcel of the whole drainage improvements for the low-lying beach areas. And I just think that they should show a dotted box. Yes,
we did.
I sent them the drawing, which
Okay.
shows the location. So I just commented there, and the comment I got back from Anthony, and I made those comments after checking with Bill Hurley, because I said, Bill, did this group talk to you at all about their plans for redoing all these parks? And he said, no, they did not.
Well, they did on Rooster River. I know they did. I know there were lots of discussions on Rooster River and Owen Fish Park and some of the ball fields, because I talked to Anthony and
there
Bill
were
Hurley on those.
Yeah, there were conversations on that I think that was more when the Rooster River plan was presented, not necessarily with these landscape architects who are doing this current project. That's my understanding. But anyway,
well, I know there were conversations between Bill.
Be that as it will.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, and obviously the Rooster River plan needs to be considered.
The only other
So Anthony did answer back to me. He said, no, we're well aware of all that stuff, so that's fine.
Okay, I noticed a couple other things that were concerning, but none of them were big. So if you already gave the Malone and McBroom on the Ash Creek one, that also applied to the Jennings parking lot, because we wanted a berm to go along the Jennings parking lot to come down the road.
Well, that's the whole thing, because they've moved
had
the
changed
entrance.
the entrance.
They moved the entrance.
And we have a nice hill right now where the entrance is.
Yeah.
They probably want the entrance to be low down, which is the worst thing we want for flooding, because if anything, we want the berm to be higher.
You think. But, I saw that they moved the entrance, and I said to myself, well, where's the berm? Because the berm does go across that road somewhere.
Well, the entrance is a berm. When you come into Jennings, you come up and down. So if they move the entrance, it's actually lower where they had it. Mm-hmm. So they were going to basically make it easier for cars to get in, but they were going to ruin the whole flood protection berm.
The berm does extend from both sides of the guardhouse now, where the entrance goes up and over. It extends on both sides, and as it goes north on South Benson Road, it goes across to the parking lot of the marina.
Well, that's where the proposed berm goes.
Right. Well, anyway, I saw that, but if they pay attention to Malone and
if they look at the plan, they would see
path of the dike. Yeah. They need to have the path.
Because Malone and McBroom had actually proposed a whole new entrance to Jennings that would come in through the same lot. Down South
Benson Road. Just continue straight down South Benson Road and or South Benson Court or whatever it's called.
Or even Beach Road. You could even come into Jennings through Beach Road. There's no reason why you can't.
Yeah.
It's actually there.
When I was growing up, that used to be open.
That was the entrance? Yeah.
Well, it was one of them. I believe you could go through both.
And now they just use it for races. They open it.
Right.
But there's no reason why that can't be.
And 4th of July.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Parks and Rec master plan?
No, that was all. I mean, it's very high level, as they say. So
it's gonna come back out for public comment. There were so many public comments that I'm sure it will be revised. So I think so. No, that got major negative. All right. The next agenda item then is update on a status of current projects. And Dick and I can kind of just take these one by one. I don't know if you want to go ahead and start, or I can start. The Riverside Drive Turney bridge replacement is shovel ready. They just need a very small little extra. The bid package itself, I think they're working on right now. Ty and Bond is doing this. It's a $5.5 million project, but they need a grant. It is eligible, I think, for a Department of Transportation bridge grant, but I don't believe that they have, I'm not sure when the next grant cycle comes up for that.
But the other thing that it needs, though, is that it needs approval by the town bodies for funding. So the 14-point, give me money for this project, that 14-point request will go in the fall.
Right, but I think they want us to get a grant. I assume that they will want for 5.5. I think they're going to want us to apply for a grant.
I don't know that that's how it goes. I think they when we approve a project, we approve the full value of the project.
And then
there's an asterisk that says we expect to get a $2 million grant.
But if we don't get the grant,
we want the approval there so that we are able to bond for the entire cost of the project.
Okay, all right, good.
So the 14 points is not dependent on the grant. I think the grant is dependent on the town approving the project and funding the project.
Okay.
So you have to.
It's almost chicken and egg. You got to do one.
When Brenda signs off on the grant application, somewhere in there it says, "Are you ready to pay the money?" And you have to say yes. So, but it's closer to getting out. The permits are in place, which is the big thing.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick question. That Riverside Drive turning, what was that project? Is that a tie gate or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then there was talk of the self-regulating tie gate at the Riverside Drive open space. And that one, I don't think I took good notes on that. That one.
The money is approved. Tim will send the request.
Tim has the money on that.
The money's approved. Tim will send the request to
as does
Marsilio to get it going.
And McLeavy was also approved. Those were both approved in the past budget.
Yes.
So then Rooster River Resiliency Project, that apparently is out for permits. Right now they are, I think they have basically submitted the ideas to DEEP, to the dam safety and structures and fill for both Fairchild and the Texas sites.
Right. So that's in the permit
stage. In the permitting stage. Resilience measures, the high intensity wave action study, nothing has happened on that. Nothing has happened on that. They had originally said the RFP would be going out through purchasing in August. They haven't even started writing it and engineering yet. Mm-hmm. They haven't even assigned it to anyone in engineering yet. So unfortunately, that is not even close to going out. But hopefully, we'll just keep on that.
Because the money was earmarked in the ARPA money, and it has to get going.
Yeah.
It has to get going. So
it has to be used
so our role now is to keep on Bill and say, Bill, what do you need? What do you want?
Who's going to?
Because URI, they were off for the summer and stuff, but URI is very interested in this.
And I'm sure Race will put in a bid too.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have people who want to do this. It's just that we've got to get the RFP out.
I know.
So that's the resilience measures along the shorefront. I think there's also some confusion about what that was, because what Bill said was not what we had talked about previously. So I do think that there is an action item on this for us to write a formal note to Bill on and just reiterate the URI.
For the shorefront.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the resilience measures at the Fairfield Beach Club, that was a separate identified item for $100,000 to do the design for that.
But he did say that they would start writing next week, which would be this week.
Right.
So someone has been assigned
and he's saying
that.
September it should go out to bid.
Wait, what was that one? I'm sorry.
Resiliency measures at the Fairfield Beach Club.
Okay, I got that one.
Yeah. Then we had the wastewater treatment project, which I think you said there were just a few odds and ends.
Yeah, and I just keep following that because like they didn't go and seed the new berm properly in one area. The biggest item on that is getting the microgrid in place, because pump station number 1 on the wastewater treatment plant job is powered from the microgrid, but that power is not yet there available. So the current status of that is they have an emergency generator sitting there. So if we're getting a heavy rainstorm, wastewater treatment people know to go out and start the emergency generator and get it all ready to go if we need that pump station. So,
There is no update on the status of Penfield Pavilion.
no, they were not ready to comment at all.
And the Perry's Green, there was a very good meeting that was held with a lot of the key players. Race did a review of sort of what their plan was. A lot of comments were made. Recently, the land borings have been done and the in-water borings have been done. And I think the plan is to get back with very preliminary concept drawings towards the end of August, which may go towards early September. But that was the timing that was talked about in the meeting.
And one of the things, well, two things. One was that the residents of the Southport area's representatives talked about having a stone bulkhead similar to what's there now, because that's what it historically was. Stone bulkheads are much more expensive than the sheet pile bulkheads, and maybe they talked about maybe there's a compromise to do the stone on the visible side of the bulkhead, but on the water-facing side, just do sheet piles or something like that.
Well, there is
so that
stone
still
on that side now.
Yes, there is stone on that side.
On a part of it, on like 3/4 of it.
Yeah.
And then there's sheet piling at the very end,
Right.
where it hits the waterfront.
So they want to replicate what's there,
there.
and improve it, because they talked about beautifying the section of stone wall that fronts the road there. The other thing, I was still a little confused as to the gates that are there. I'm not exactly sure of that, because that's a vulnerability unless it becomes something other than the chained open flap gates that they are now. So, but we'll see how that shakes out. There's still plenty of time for that.
And that's all that's on this list. There were a couple other things discussed, but since this is a special meeting and it's not on the list, we can't comment on them.
No, well, let's see. Rooster River resilience measurement, shorefront, Old Dam Road SRT
replacement.
replacement.
Oh, how did we skip that one? Okay.
So
that is actually on the list.
That has received the State Historic Preservation Office's permit yesterday.
Oh, it did?
So SHPO has approved it.
Oh, good. Because
Deep has approved it. So now it needs to go to the
Corps.
Army Corps of Engineers, and that's the final blessing.
They'll approve
and
it.
they'll approve
the other
it.
two have approved
Right,
it,
exactly.
definitely.
What is
So-
the first one, the state history, I'm sorry, let me interrupt.
SHPO, SHPO.
Okay.
They pronounce it SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office.
Oh, nice.
And basically what they're saying is that we have to keep the trusses. It still has to look like a bridge, but we can move the whole bridge and slightly consolidate it a little bit. We can move it all towards the playing fields. So they're allowing that whole bridge to be moved, which then allows the tide gates to then be in the correct place where they should have been all along to allow more natural flow from the Pine Creek area.
Right, exactly. So that's good. So that's moving along.
Okay.
And that can, because the design's basically done for that, so that can go out to bid pretty quickly after we get the Army Corps permit.
Right. So now is a chance, if there's any member of the public. I'm sure they're just dying to attend our meeting.
I might be the only
No,
member.
because my thing crapped out. 47 minutes and 37 seconds. There are no members of the public calling in, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. In which case, because this is a special meeting, we are not really supposed to talk about anything else, so I would propose that we adjourn at, wow, this has been a quite short meeting. Isn't that good?
7:47. The airplane. Okay, I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.